Hello and welcome to Springboard, your virtual university. My name is Albert Okran, welcoming you on behalf of Team Springboard, ably led by Comfort. This is your most inspirational show and that place where the greatest minds in the world converge. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Pulse Just Be, the Enterprise Group Enterprise Your Advantage, UMB Bank, celebrating 50 years in banking and Central University, Ghana's premier private Christian university. Our media partners, the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Business. Today's show is very, very special because it could potentially increase your revenue, increase your reach, increase your speed, cut down your cost, and even most importantly, increase the convenience with which you do business, education, politics, or whatever you are involved in. Now, if these promises attract you, then you are at the right place at the right time, because today and next week we get to discuss digital transformation, how fast technology and innovation are changing the world in which we live. And even more importantly, apart from admiring technology, how you can leverage technology to be better, faster, cheaper at what you do, and more profitable. My guest to help us do this very difficult but exciting job, Sammy Bartels, Senior Manager, Regulatory Affairs at MTN Ghana. Sammy, good to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here, Rev.
Oh, good to see you again.
Yes, sir.
And Jacob Kwaku Gyan, CEO of Adroit 360. Jacob, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
It's your first time here, so you're,
Yes.
you're a greenhorn here.
Yes,
But you'll be fine.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. Tell me, how exciting is this subject, Sammy? Because in building up to this, let me tell you why this is so, and I chose to start from here because the typical customer expects speed, lower costs, convenience, customized service, greater variety. And they want it as at low a cost as possible. And I'm sure in the MTN scheme of things, these are big considerations. How exciting is this conversation in the light of what people expect in business?
Oh, it is exciting because, it's a two-way approach. How the technology affects our lives and how our changing taste also affects the application of the technology. And I think that it's the interaction of this over the years that has determined how things will go. A lot of the technological developments that have actually happened have been on the basis of science that sometimes has existed for centuries, and people just kept adding on, and eventually something happens, somebody applies it to something that people could actually use, and then it happens. I think there are a few practical examples around us, and given my background, I'll probably be biased and say that they would say one of the greatest inventions ever in the world was legal tender, right? And they said money, and it had to be shown physically, either in coins or in paper. Many years on, in Asikanewen, you don't have to see the money, but you believe you have the money.
Talking about Asikanewen, I saw on Facebook recently that MTN had built a 2-bedroom house for the woman who did that iconic.
Yes.
So I went on YouTube and watched the advert again. And how many years ago was that?
It's almost 20.
I just can't imagine that it was such a central part of our lives. And
years,
for those of you who don't know, who were not in the space at the time, when MTN mobile money came out first, there was this iconic advert about a woman rushing at what was ostensibly a riverside, yelling that her son in the city had sent her some plenty money. And the young man was still in the boat asking him. Then we got to know that it was possible to send money on the phone.
Precisely. So now,
with some Nokia, Charlie.
I think technology is giving us a greater level of faith because you don't have to see money to know that you've received money. In fact, I was reading about an app that allows people to split bills. So in the Western world, if we went out together, everybody splits it down to the last coin.
Right.
But this technology allows everybody to split and pay instantly.
Right. So we go and buy food, you and I, and decide that, listen, I'm paying half, you're paying half.
You're paying half.
So the technology splits the bill.
Yeah, allows you, and everybody just pays their part. Now that's crazy, but...
And you are seeing that these the interaction of the technological evolution and the expectation of customers, the confluence of these two is what has driven the direction of technology.
Absolutely. Another example is streaming, for instance.
Okay.
Cable TV, or here in Ghana, what we'll call satellite TV. People begin to ask, well, I don't want to pay so much when it's just one or two shows I really want, or it's just the football I want on there. Now, over the years, streaming services meant that things could be delivered to people wherever they are. It meant they didn't have to sit through scheduled programming, for instance. The other thing that happened is that people like Netflix, who were late to the game but showed how the future will look like, then started developing programs that suit you. So they know Albert's viewing habits, they know what Albert watches. They will develop programming for Albert. Not only that, but even when they commissioned a movie, that movie would have taken into consideration what people want, how they want the story to evolve, how they want the ending to be. So when that movie comes out and it's streamed and suddenly it has so many billions of people watching, it's no longer by accident, but it was pre-programmed based on the feedback from the interaction between the streaming service and the people who watch it.
Let me go behind the scenes for the benefit. And before we went on, I was telling you about when I was a child watching going to the cinema and looking at the way the rolls were used to show the films.
Yeah.
Very, very old technology. We were very, very fascinated. What he just described, Jacob, help us to understand from the tech point of view, without getting very technical, how is this enabled? So let me summarize what he just told me, and then you tell me how technology gets to do that. So he's telling me that the expectations of customers and the direction of technology come together to provide solutions that may not have been planned by the tech company, but they're looking at what the customers want and how the technology is going. They bring them together and create solutions. An example he's given is that at first, TV is scheduled and you are happy with the schedule and you watch it, but along the line you get bored. I don't like this one, I don't like this one. But your show will come in 3 hours time. You have to watch out till your show comes or go and come back. And he's saying that the streaming services allow you to watch what you want when you watch it. They call it presumption. You consume what you want when you want it. And then he's saying that even more than that, they are able to tell what the majority of customers want, and then that even goes now into the actual scripting and design of the films. We are consumers, so we like what we see. But from the tech point of view, how does technology get to answer all these complex questions?
So one of the driving forces of technology in these recent times is what we call big data and perspective analysis. So when you are on your iPad and you're on your computer, or even you're on a TV set, which you usually now runs on quite complex softwares, these softwares are learning from you. They are looking at what you type, the movies you select, the things that interest you. And so big data, perspective analysis, and what we call sentimental analysis. The computers are able to say that, okay, Albert likes action movies. Albert doesn't like emotional movies. And based on that, they gather these data, and therefore the companies, in fact, I would say that video on demand companies, that's what they call themselves. So these streaming services, the likes of YouTube, the likes of Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and all that, they use this information to know exactly what a lot of their customers want. And therefore, they make investments in those areas to produce movies that are fit for purpose. That means exactly what the customer wants is what they deliver to them. And in the other light, they use that data also to drive agenda, because once they know all about you, and you see, this is the age of what we call hyper integration. So big data, they are learning data from you. There is artificial intelligence, which is thinking that if this guy likes this, then he might like this. What they call same adjacency, intelligent adjacency in computing. So if you like, let me break it down. If you like Pepsodent or a toothbrush, then you certainly like a toothpaste.
Right. Or when you go to let's say a restaurant, they say that, or even you go online to buy a book. Yeah. And you buy a particular
Amazon.
book or a particular Amazon will say, do
you might also
majority
like this.
and very often they're actually right.
Yeah.
because they know other authors who write similar books. So when you buy Jim Rohn, they say those who bought Jim Rohn
Usually
most likely
buy this.
bought Brian Tracy.
So
and it's true.
So that is what they call sentimental analysis.
Yeah.
And they pick that data and it's demographic.
I will never forget the year in which I bought one. I really wanted to buy one DVD. I knew what I wanted. And I hadn't been instructed about these things.
Yeah.
So it was $89. I knew what I wanted. So I keyed in that DVD. Then they said, oh, those who bought this also bought this one. Then I said, that's not bad. Then I added it. Then they said, oh, those who like this topic also like this topic. Then I added it. And they said, consider this 7-part series by Jim Rohn. That would enable you to trade. Then I added that one. When I finished it, it was $1,100.
But those are things you like.
But that was violation, wasn't it?
If you were the business person, you'll be happy. Your sales have gone up.
When it was delivered, I was very, very happy. But I also looked at my wallet and I realized I had been violated.
So exactly, so Amazon is now applying big data, applying sentimental analysis, artificial intelligence, reading who their customers are, being able to. So I mean, the emergence of chatbots. So if you want to, recently I was traveling, I bought a ticket on WhatsApp, chatting with the airline. So the emergence of these technologies are being used and making their businesses better.
Let's break it in two. From the customer point of view, Jacob, what does this... I talked about being violated, but I want to also put it on record that when I came back to Ghana for the next 3 years, that investment of $1,000 enabled our company in the training space to earn more than 100 times that one.
Yes.
So I am mindful that when you make the investment, it can benefit you. But at the point where you are making the investment, help me to appreciate as a tech person, what does that do for the customer and what does that do for the tech person? Is it a win-win? And is it possible to also lose if you are not informed?
Well, in most cases, the thing is, if with data, we are able to make informed decisions. So in most cases, it's a win-win situation. However, there will be some customers, for instance, who will chance on an e-commerce website and with bad economic planning might end up spending their fortune because these companies, for them, they are in business. And with the data they have, remember that this data is driven by a software, a computer, and it is way intelligent than the average human being. And so this software would be able to make the right predictions. You were, I just said I wanted this, and there are things that you didn't want. And what they also do is they collect all your data. So before you make the purchase, they just don't want your money. What is more important to them is your name, is your email address, is your telephone number, how they can reach you, and they resell you. So they come to your email and said, we realize that you bought this. All those who have bought this also like this.
Let me just add this. Albert, these technologies, and we talk about artificial intelligence, they just appeal to a very basic human side. Humans want to be recognized, identified. They want to be seen. They don't want to be invisible. Now, when I came here today, you met me, you greeted me, you mentioned my name. You greeted me by name, Sammy. That shows that there's a personal connection. You know me. And that feels good. And so when you go there and it says, hi, Jacob, welcome. And some of the basic things like even cookies, like session cookies that they use on websites, so that when you go back to the website, they take you straight to the homepage or they take you to where you were before. It's convenience. So at the heart of this is convenience. At the heart of this is our desire for personalized services. At the heart of this is the desire not to be stressed. If you went on Amazon and it was just like a jungle, you would struggle finding products. But because you've been there before, already they have an idea of the things that you are looking for. When you type in something, they start lining up all the things that you want. And that, in terms of consumer behavior and consumer preference, is a key driver that they are catering to. It is the reason why, for instance, people would prefer a rideshare app to a taxi. Because the period you stand there waiting for the next taxi to come is different from the personalized service you get when the guy says, I'll be here in 5 minutes.
So what you're saying is that by the power of these technologies and these innovations, the person who sits at home and orders Uber, Yango, Bolt, whatever it is, does not even have to bother to come out into the sun, the rain, anything. can cross their legs and watch their Netflix or their movie or their DSTV or their whatever it is until the rider says, I'm here. And you knew it's going to be in 5 minutes. So you can start packing your things, locking your door, and exactly 5 minutes they are there.
Convenience.
And that is convenience to the person who is consuming.
Yeah.
Is that same convenience also to the rider or the owner of the app or the owner of the service?
I'll let Jacob finish his point, and I'll come back on that.
Well,
because he was making that point.
They
drive the technology.
That is enjoyed by both the customer and the service provider.
In most cases. So for a lot of people that I have seen going into ride hailing, they have a regular job. When they close work, they're able to use their vehicle to earn extra money as a side hustle. That's a big win. And for some people, they work at probably a bank, they make some savings, they buy a vehicle, give it to somebody, employ the person, a win for the person. They're also earning side money. And the majority of the investment, because it's not driven locally. So these companies Sammy has mentioned are all foreign companies that have come here. So they obviously take a lot of money out of the country. That's the only bit where we lose, because there are lots of technological companies in Ghana that are doing amazing. And I'm sure as we go forward, we'll get the opportunity to throw light on that. So aside that, I think it's a win for everybody.
The biggest fear, Sammy, when it comes to technology, will seem to be that the first response to people when you mention technological innovation, skill, and transformation is the fear that it will take their jobs away. Recently, there is a development, and I'll mention the company. It's a company we all know, but has opened the pioneer shops in the UK, which have no attendants, which means that you walk into the shop, take your trolley, as you normally will do in any Sainsbury's, Marks and Spencer or whatever, and go to the rack, pick whatever you need, get to the point where the teller typically is, scan them yourself, which is regular practice. Once you scan, the total is given to you, swipe your card, they just come rest watching you, and then you walk out. The persons who fear that the evolution of technology will take their jobs away, are they right, wrong, or both?
There's a point in there about job losses, but I think some of the evaluations have been alarmist in nature, and let me explain. First, I'll start with a historical antecedent, and then I'll end. You would see that throughout history, this has all happened over and over again. It's a cycle. Industrial revolution happens. You have the development of the steam engine, the printing press. It must have put some letter writers out of, and the monks who used to transcribe the Bible and all of that. What happened to all of those people? Because printing meant that things went out, written materials went out to the masses. But we all know what that also did. It created a new job called the printing press. And people who had different roles. And because you have run this before, you know the different jobs that relate to the printing process, including even who the proofreader is and all of that. In the 70s, in the US, when computers started, it took a while to get to us. A lot of people were put out of job. And they used to have secretaries who waited for bosses to dictate. I think here in Ghana, people went to school to learn shorthand because of these things. Because you sit in a meeting and somebody dictates and you write. Once computers came, it became redundant. They no longer needed to be doing this. One of the most epochal examples will be in the 1900s when Ford developed the Model T. The way Ford transformed the way cars were manufactured is because he came with the assembly plant, right? Before, one guy would work on the whole car. And let's say they were producing 8, let's say in a week. Now he decided one guy becomes specialized. All you do is you fix the wheels, and they double their productivity. When that happened and everybody started using it, the conclusion was that a lot of people were going to lose their jobs. But the effect of the efficiencies created was that the prices of cars dropped. Because Ford had told himself that he wanted to produce a car his workers could buy, even the lowest workers. Once the prices dropped, it meant the ordinary person could buy a car. And that meant that the demand for cars had gone up. When the demand for cars went up, it meant that more factories had to be built. It meant more cars had to be produced. In actual fact, contrary to the expectation, it meant more people had to be employed in order to keep the factories working. Now, by that same token, in this current situation, inevitably, people are going to lose jobs because their training will be redundant. So we spoke about the Sainsbury's and the Asda and the Tesco's and the people who used to sit there and do the calculation. The fact that people do self-service. Now, the fact that somebody does not have to stand there anymore doesn't mean that some other jobs are not created. What's happening is that many more jobs are being created. I think in the US, they said that the difference between how many jobs were lost because of the computer and how many jobs were created was around 15 million. About 3 million jobs. 15. About 3 million lost. 18 million new roles created because the computer came. Now, just to wrap it all up rather beautifully, is the sense in which the alarm is over the fact that the jobs that will be lost or the people who would require training, we can see. The jobs that are going to be created, we cannot see all of them. None of these things will happen instantaneously. In fact, some of the new jobs that tech and all these technologies are going to create, we don't know yet, and we can't fathom yet. So the key thing will be how people pivot and learn new skills. I think we've learned from experiences of people like soldiers in the US and other places that even when a person has gone into a career, they can always pivot and learn new skills that makes them relevant. So I don't think the net effect will be that people will lose jobs. The net effect will actually be that more people will be in jobs, but in jobs that they can't recognize now or couldn't have recognized a few years ago.
We're going to come to that, and it's very beautiful. But let me come to you, Jacob. One of the reasons why I was fascinated by your story and brought you into the show was listening to you talk to an international conference about starting life broke. I love those stories. When people talk about starting life with real hustle and talking about how in the course of that journey, you, as it were, stumbled on technology and your life has not been the same. Give us a bit of a summary about that part of your life and how you found yourself in tech. And hopefully, as we do that, we can learn some lessons about the possibilities that the world of tech brings.
Well, I think, my name is Jacob, as you all know. I'm a tech freak. I love everything digital. I started with software programming, and now anything that has to do with technology, I love it. I graduated senior high school, grew up with my parents in Accra. My father, he was a mechanic, electrician, and he was very hardworking. He drove taxi at night and did the mechanic during the day. And my mom would sell anything from pure water on her head to anything at all she could carry. Grew up in Alajo, Kotobabi, Newtown, slept in containers. And so after high school, really, I didn't really know what to do with my life. In high school, I wasn't an average student. By God's grace, always at the top of the class. So I really wanted to go to tertiary, but I also knew that life was challenging. My parents didn't have the pleasure of just taking me to tertiary. So I chanced on anything I chanced on, I tried to do it. So I taught in the secondary school for some time, a basic school as a pupil teacher. So I ended up going to do internship at GBC. And on my way to go and cover a story, in fact, the week before, my boss at Unique FM had sent me to cover a story with President Mahama. And that was the first time. And I was given huge money. And look at me, sleeping in all sorts of places, being given a big envelope after I did a story. So the next week I heard that, the president is coming to Manchagbona. And you know, these journalists, we are all in a certain group. So you see it in the morning and you have to just dash there to get something for the day. So on my way, I got to the trotro station, and the Kotobabi trotro station, the driver said they will not load us because one passenger misbehaved. So I look at the calculation. If I pick a taxi, maybe 10, 15 Ghana. And if I go and do the story, maybe 200, 300 Ghana. I said, I'll pick a taxi. So,
it's investment.
So I stopped the taxi. And I was 17, 18 at the time. So another young chap looking like me comes and tells me, I'm going to register a company. And I say, register a company? What would you do? He says, I'll build websites and mobile apps. And amazingly, I didn't go and cover the news story. So,
you're joking?
Yes, I sat in the car with him, paid the car, and went to RGD to go and make inquiries. So he registered the company Strategies and Systems, Joseph, God bless him. And then we started the IT company. So I didn't know how to program.
No, slow down. You're joking.
Yes, I'm serious. He changed my life.
No, you sit in a taxi with this guy called Joseph.
Yes. And I began interviewing.
No, first of all, let's thank the church driver. Who did he know you? Because, my goodness.
Yes.
And then you sit in this taxi with this guy.
Yes.
On your way to Manchaguna.
Yes.
To go and cover the president.
Yes.
And then you say, this is more interesting.
Yes. So he tells me, I think at the time I was in love with Steve Jobs. So I was always, when I close work, I go in. Usually I don't want to go to my father's mechanic shop because I would have to do mechanic work. So I go to the internet cafe and I'm with the boys. So I'm always watching videos of while they are in quote browsing, I'm watching Steve Jobs. So it's like Steve Jobs appeared to me in the form of Joseph. And then I was always watching it. So Joseph just came and said, he's going to register an IT company. And I was like, well, this sounds interesting. So
a bit more interesting than the mechanic work.
So I followed him. We later on did the registration. Now the challenge was, he was an amazing software engineer, but I didn't know anything. We didn't have any clients. We didn't know how to. We were all 17 years, young kids. So I told him that I can get clients. So I wake up every day. I don't think my clothes were probably one or two every day. Wear the same. Walk to Moving Pick from Kotobawi. Walk to Labadi Beach Hotel. Any hotel at all. Because I realized that if I go there, I meet people, conferences, and I gained that from my few months as a journalist. So I go to Moving Pick, they are doing a conference, and there will be a CEO or somebody. I go to the person, my name is Jacob, I'm from Strategies, and we can build a website for your company. And I did that for probably 1.5 years till we got our first client. And
in the 1.5 years, how were you living?
My father, really, I wake up in the morning, carry car batteries, help him in the shop, and I get 10 Ghana. Then immediately I get anything on me, I'm going straight to a hotel. Moving
All about the beach.
And when I get there, I usually used to eat there. So whatever they serve the people. And because I had practiced as a journalist for about 3 months, I knew how to get in. And I knew how to act like I'm part of the conference.
But these things you're saying, I can see about 5 different teams. Now for once, I'm stuck because I don't know which of them to explore. Because I'm looking, first of all, at the entrepreneurial mindset. I'm looking at the sacrifice of a man who knows I can do it, but I'm not there yet. But I'm willing to hustle and carry car battery, knowing that the very next hour or two, I'll be hanging out with business CEOs and pretending I'm a serious person. And I can see also the leveraging of your journalistic experience, something that Sammy has very much in his background as well, and using that as a tool in building networks and so on.
Yeah.
Push that forward.
So I think the most interesting part is, it was a Sunday, and my father is a church leader. He's an elder in the Church of Pentecost. So he's insistent on you going to church. So I told him that today I'm going to Action Chapel. And my reason was that I heard someone say rich people go to Action Chapel.
Wow.
And as a 17-year-old boy, based on that assertion, I went to Action Chapel that day. Sat at the back. When after the service,
looking for rich people.
Yes, looking for someone I would be bold enough to approach. So after the service, I saw there's a cafeteria. I went to the cafeteria, saw 2 people chatting, and then I heard someone say the guy passing by is the CEO of Dell. So we are young boys trying to get into tech. All this while my friend is always at home, and I hear Dell. Joseph. So I hear Dell. So I just turn and I go to follow the man. I hadn't mastered the courage to talk to him yet. So he entered an elevator. Apparently, he owned a restaurant on the Fazako Road, Kahaya. And so his restaurant was giving food to the Archbishop. And so they were carrying the food, and he had people by him and all that. So they tried to get me out. One of the guys pushed me, who are you?
The journalistic skills.
And then I told them I'm with the Dell guy.
You're joking.
The man just turned and looked at me and said, let him come. So I approached him, told him my name is Jacob, I can build websites, I can do mobile apps. He gave me his card. We called him for 6 months, never answered. And one day I'm there and somebody calls me, my name is Eugene, so I'm CEO for Bad Systems. The country manager of Dell gave your number to us, and that's how we got our first client.
Just a springboard your virtual identity. My name is Adroit Okran. I interview people. And I guess for today, Jacob Kwaku Gyan. He's the CEO of Adroit 360 and Sammy Bartels, he's the Senior Manager in charge of Regulatory Affairs at MTN Ghana. They are telling me about the power of technology and mixing it up with Jacob's amazing story. Obviously, intermingled in all this are lessons for you as a young person and an entrepreneur out there that are obviously undeniable. When I come back, we will pick out some lessons from this and then settle on the unbelievable power of technology and innovation. Please don't go away.
There once was a man who had it all. He had skill, he had charisma. He was loved by all, but above all, he knew the importance of helping others, lifting others up. He knew the importance of giving other people an advantage so that they too would use that advantage to help others. All you need is that advantage that sets you apart from the rest. And when you discover that advantage, life's challenges don't seem so daunting anymore. That's where we come in. Enterprise, your advantage.
Some of that. Some of this, some of that. Give me some of that. Some of this, some of that. One, make you melt like the sun. Two, I can make it all about you. Three, you should make it all about me. Four, yeah, I think I like that more.
UMB was established in 1972 as the premier bank for the corporate and private sector in Ghana. From our very beginning, as the only Ghanaian bank serving all categories of businesses, we set a standard for excellence and innovation. Over the past 45 years, we've built a financially healthy and strong bank, demonstrated our commitment to our customers and to growing businesses, and exhibited originality and innovation at every turn. At UMB, our focus is built around people, service, products and technology. These are the key to our present success and our future triumphs. At UMB, we are poised to make a difference not only with our customers, but also in the banking industry. We invite you to share in our future. Our future starts now with you.
Central University, we are not just giving theoretical knowledge, but also real-life practical immersion. Our projects and research are targeted at solving real-life problems within our built and natural environment. My name is Che Joseph Bafo, an architecture student. The faculty and facilities available to us make us industry ready. The project I'm working on recently won an award when my colleagues and I visited the Netherlands. Central University makes you industry ready.
Welcome back to Springboard, a better investor, into this interesting conversation about digital transformation. We are looking at the exciting world of technology and innovation with my guests, Sammy Bartels, Senior Manager, Regulatory Affairs of MTN Ghana, and Jacob Kwaku, Gyan, CEO of Adroit 360, helping me to appreciate how our world has changed, what is possible now, and what will be possible going forward. So far, Jacob has been talking about the fact that it is the confluence between technology and expectations of customers that have driven some of the changes that we've seen. And Sammy says that the technologies learn from us and observe what we do and then design to suit our needs, and as they go on, even evolve films and solutions that reflect that learning they've learned from observing us doing our work on our device. It sounded a bit scary, but that's the truth. Jacob says that these technologies, artificial intelligence, big data, and so on, are win-win and benefit both the customer and then also the service provider. Sammy says technology really is a replication of our day-to-day emotional and social connections. It says that when the technology says, "Hello, Albert, how are you today?" it's appealing to how the same thing that we do when we have our regular human interaction. So it's a continuity of it, and that's basically what it is. On the issue of job losses, Sammy is saying that there is sometimes an overhyped reaction to this issue of job losses, because for every job lost, there are several others created. Use the US as an example to show that the net jobs created is 5 times the jobs that were lost, 3 million, 15 million. So yes, some jobs will be lost, but many more will be created that are different from what is lost. Maybe the big question should be, where will the new opportunities come, and what kind of training will we need and for these new jobs that are coming up? But the high point of that first part was Jacob telling a very crazy story, if I may call it that way, of starting out in life from a disadvantaged background and some deliberate actions that he took to move himself forward in his career, and a chance encounter with one Joseph in a taxi that turned his life around. I mean, Sammy, you introduced me to Jacob, and I must tell you something. The guy is crazy. He's sitting right here, and I'm saying he's crazy. So once you are friends, then you also are crazy. What about that story connects to you? Because I found entrepreneurial lessons, I found leadership lessons, I found personal attributes, boldness that can be leveraged in your career and your business. How does that story connect to you? Two of your friends, how does it connect to you?
The parts about your aspirations not being a function of where you live, where you come from, or the level of income of your parents. I mean, he pointed to how within the particular area he lived, Kotobabi, and I lived in Alajo, same areas. When computers became popular, people went to the cafe, but most people used it for other purposes. It's quite similar to now, where you have a lot of young people spend inordinately long periods of time on social media, and others spend it perhaps on Coursera or Udemy or some other one, learning and earning degrees and qualification and all that. So whilst he was watching Steve Jobs, others were browsing other things. How did he even know about him? It was because of the technology. Now, where we connect is, a few years ago, I had then, I was working, I was in traffic. This guy was waving at me and, calling my name. I'm checking it up. I'm not too sure. So later we were connected, and he says, "Joe, do you remember?" And I grew up in Alajo. I grew up selling oil with my mother, coconut oil, before it became everybody's darling.
Did you ever sell pure water with your mom?
I sold everything.
So,
Lady Claw, anything she sold, I was a business partner.
So you were selling pure water, you were selling coconut oil?
Coconut oil,
okay.
Regular. And then we alternated that. Those days when the foreign newspapers were brought, we sold them to people who sold food so they could wrap it with it. So I sold that as well sometimes. And we used to go to their area. I'm carrying the oil behind my mother, and we are selling. And that's how apparently he had seen me for the very first time. So obviously we went our different ways. He was much younger. I go through the mill, SS, go to the university. And it turns out that after uni, my first profession really was journalism. I started at Radio University, and then I went to CTFM. And within that period, I was doing a lot of television with GTV, TV3, everybody. Apparently, he had seen me and said, "Is this not the oil seller's son? He's on TV." Hey! So later he's telling me, it made him realize somebody within our environment could actually make it that big, that it's possible that somebody could do that. I said, I never knew. That's the kind of effect that my being on TV had on him.
It's still technology.
Technology, and that's how we reconnected. And he found his calling very early on in technology. I found my pretty later on. After qualifying as a lawyer, I thought I'll do what every lawyer does, wear the suit and go to court. And when I went to study, I'd gone to study media law, obviously because of my background. I get into Queen Mary University of London and realize it is a totally different world from what I knew. You know, you had colleagues who had come from all over the world, and they were going into the cyberspace law, competition law. They were going into all these incredible things, and I hadn't even thought about it because it wasn't one of the things within my knowledge. So, I said, perhaps I should pivot and see what is happening in here. So before courses were chosen, I go to the cyberspace class, and my mind is blown because I saw myself as a lawyer in a linear kind of way, because here in Ghana, you know what lawyers do. But then suddenly, I was seeing applications of the law to technology that I hadn't even imagined or thought about. So I got stuck in the cyberspace law class, got stuck in the telecoms law class, got stuck in the information privacy class, and media law, which was primarily why I went, ended up becoming, although it was a class that I took, becoming secondary because suddenly my world was opened up to possibilities. And you realize that technology, being at the basis of everything, affects everything, including the law, the legal side, the regulatory side. That's how come I even got mixed up in it and came back and ended up having a new profession, which is a lawyer specializing in what they call TMT, which is technology, media, and telecommunications law.
The two of you are crazy. That I'm convinced about now. But then what you have done, and I'm going to come back to technology and innovation, but what Springboard does, and I learned that from my recent conversation with Gina of MTN, Gina Sarifagin of MTN, the senior manager in charge of corporate communication. She says that no matter how sure you are that people know what you do, repeat it every time you connect with them. That was the biggest lesson from my interaction with Gina a few weeks ago. So let me tell you what Springboard does and why I have the liberty to put a conversation about technology and innovation on hold and say, whoa, here we are. This is big. Springboard is literally about empowering, mentoring, challenging Africa's young people to do great things. And we call it a virtual university because we create a platform to harvest knowledge, to curate knowledge, and transmit it as far and wide as we can. And technology has been a very big part of what we have done, starting from a radio broadcast in August 2008 to become a multi-platform engagement that has several streams and that has also several adjacencies that continue way after the broadcast. And what the two of you have done is to provide so many outlets that have the liberty to say, you know what, we'll still continue talking about technology and innovation. But here am I sitting down saying, Jacob, did you never feel ashamed selling pure water when others who you knew were going to the swimming pool, still in their dad's big cars? Did you not feel disadvantaged? Did you not feel ashamed? Sammy, did you not feel when you were carrying the coconut oil behind your mother? Did you not see colleagues who you knew, who you waved at them and they're like, do I know you from somewhere? Do you help me to understand?
So I think I can only remember two instances where I felt ashamed, because as a child, all I cared about was if my basic needs were given. And I think I'll applaud my parents, because a lot of people who grew up where I grew up cannot afford the schools I was in. I was sacked school fees every day, but my mother would say, no, you still go to that good school. So I'll applaud them for the support they gave and the push. But there was a time I was sacked school fees. I think I was in JSS 1. So I went to the mechanic shop. My father says, come and help me. So I'm changed into what they wear, and I'm helping him with the cars. And apparently my mates close and I see them walking. So I start running, running away. And my father never understood. I'm sure he still doesn't understand. And the second time was that sometimes I'll go around with my mom with anything she sold. So at the time, I think she sold ladies' slippers on her head. And whilst we were going, we passed by one of my classmates' house. And he came to school and made sure he narrated to everybody. So the next time, I was around the same JSS 1. My mom packed the stuff. And when she came back, I was sitting down in tears. Oh. And so she added mine to hers. And that was the last time I ever went around with her. So those are the only two
You
instances.
abandoned your mom. You made her carry double portion on her head. Have you compensated her for abandoning her in the middle of your business project?
I am sure I think my father is the most proud person in the world. And my mother has enjoyed her fair share way more even than my father. So
always do.
she has, I mean, it's been a fantastic journey from what I've said, knowing nothing. And usually I want to push people to say that you don't have to have fears. You don't have to be scared. Because when I got my first client, I didn't know what a logo was. I didn't know. I was 17. I just completed high school. I didn't know what invoice was. So anything they requested for, can you send us a pro forma? I go on the internet and I type.
What is pro forma?
Then I see samples. Then I'll take the company name out, put my company. I didn't even know anything. So
and again, technology was
key. Google was my home. So invoices, contracts, and the first contract I had a lawyer look was not even one. I had worked with multinationals taking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I was still doing Google stuff until people found interest in me and said, "What you are doing is big. You need to regularize, put together a board, and so when you keep moving, the help will come."
I'll come back to you at this point. When you keep moving, the help will come. I'm sure somebody's listening and saying, "Oh, if I had known this 10 years ago, I would have been more bold," because the part of your story that's killed me the most was trying to get close to people that you didn't know and engage them because you thought they could present opportunity. And the security man stopping you and you say, "I'm with him." And the person beside you say, "You come." that was my high point.
And he's been my client for 10 years. Yeah. He called me this week.
The boldness to do that is magical. And then also not to go to Manchaguna. Sammy Bartels, let me come to you, and I'm enjoying this tremendously. I mean, this is what I do for a living. I'm just enjoying new knowledge. If somebody sat in front of you and said, "You're a lawyer, you are an executive in a firm, this is my dream, but Charlie, my home is hard, and I feel disadvantaged. How can I borrow from this story to inspire that person who feels, Charlie, sacked for school fees?" And then you talked about how those times you just get moving. What lesson can the person who is beginning, who is struggling, learn from that?
It doesn't cost anything to dream.
Okay. When you're carrying the oil, were you dreaming?
Oh yes. It doesn't cost anything to dream, and you have nothing to lose. I mean, how worse can it get anyway? And I say, even when I carried the oil, I dreamt because of my mother. Because at every point in time, she had sowed seeds in our minds and had said, this doesn't detract from whatever you want to become. I remember in the very early days, my mother raised us as a single mom. When we left my father's place and we came to my mother, we then had to do the step down, from a preparatory school to a government school. This was class 4. She said, it's more about your effort and not the environment you find yourself in. So even if the environment is discouraging, take yourself out of the environment. Whenever you are doing anything, remember where you want to go to. And that was it. It settled it. So then you remember Saito. So I went to Alajo 1 and 2 primary school. In the morning, when you are in the morning, you do morning shift for 2 weeks, right? So you do school from like 7:30 to 12. And then another batch will come from 12:30 to 5. 2 weeks later, you turn things around. Yeah. That's how it used to be. So in the morning shift, I'll sell in the afternoon. When I was in the afternoon shift, I'll sell in the morning. By 11 o'clock, we are done. So I leave the rest to her, and then I rush back to come and bath to go to school. I think one of the crucial things in my ability to see beyond my environment and circumstances was books and reading. I told you that the other business was selling off newspapers.
Were you reading them?
Most of these newspapers came from the UK.
Yeah,
so
Daily Mail,
you had the Guardian, the Times.
Correct.
Look, the things in there were things I hadn't seen before. The things in there were things, and we talk about Manchester United and all of those things. You are watching, and those prints were good quality. And you are reading about the Prime Minister, reading about this, reading about that. I used to digest them.
Did that influence why you went to your school in the UK instead of the US? Which was quite fashionable.
Well, partly. But, there were things in there, and the more I read, the more I wanted to know. That, okay, so what more is there to it? I remember befriending this newspaper seller. God bless him wherever he is, at the Alajo taxi rank. He noticed that in the mornings, because then I had read everything at home, I'd come and stand there and read every single newspaper, at least what was on the front page and back page. So after a while, he started giving me the newspaper. So this is before school started. So if school was 7:30, I'd get there like 7. And these are newspapers people had bought in reserve, will come and pick later. He just gives you, and then you start thumbing through sports pages, this pages. Within 30 minutes, you have to read the whole graphic and then hand it over. And then you go back to school. That was step 2. Step 3. In Alajo school, they had a box of books that had been concealed in the headmaster's office because the feeling was that the children were not serious, they were destroying the books and they were stealing the books now. Because I was class prefect, I chanced upon the books and I asked the headmaster at the time, Master Donko, whether I could have access to those books. He said, yes, I could, but I couldn't take them home. So then we had a new arrangement. Whenever I had the afternoon shift, I'd arrive in school by 11 a.m., go and sit in the corner and have access to the box of books and read them until 12 when school started. When I was on the morning shift, I would close at 12, read the books for like an hour, and then go home to continue doing business with my mom. What that meant was that irrespective of what I saw around me in Alajo, my ambition started growing. Even at that stage, I knew that eventually I'd become a lawyer because I didn't see myself within the environment. I saw myself within the things that I was reading, the places I was reading about, the famous people I was reading about. So I was no longer competing with the people around me. I was competing with myself.
That's a beautiful story, and the lessons. Now I see why the two of you are friends. So to wrap up this first session, as for the technology and innovation is given, but the lessons I'm picking from the two of you in tandem. One is about pivoting.
Yeah.
Starting from something and pivoting onto something else, which is ultimately where you want to go, but in the initial instance, restricted by your circumstances and by the challenges you find yourself in.
By what you know.
And by what you know. The second thing I notice is the power of affirmation and words, especially anchored on the influence of your mothers, something I share very much. But then from your final submission, 3 things stand out: dreaming, reading, and networking.
Yes.
Dreaming about who you can become, no matter where you find yourself. Reading anything you can find, including newspapers from another country that were supposed to be sold to you as wrapping paper. And then networking, building connections, relating to people, something that Jacob articulated very much. We will wrap up this first session, and next week we'll go into what I think is going to be very fascinating for everyone, because we'll borrow from everything that we have learned and go into how technology influenced every step of your journey as a corporate executive and your journey as a business person, and then target a certain cluster of industries. If you are into music and films, next week join us. If you are into entertainment, next week join us. If you are into sports, next week join us. If you are into education, next week join us. If you are into commerce, trading, food, shopping, deliveries, join us next week. If you are into church, join us next week. Which other one? Media. 7, join us next week. What we'll do is show how you can scale up a very small idea. No money, no friends, no vision. And by the power of technology and innovation, scale it up to become a global entity. With my 2 friends who have blown my mind with their very interesting submissions. Let me give you a chance to wrap up for today, starting with you, Sammy Bartels of MTN Ghana. And what will be your closing thoughts to anyone listening out there today?
You know, in 1997, Apple came out with this groundbreaking advert. You know, I call it philosophy in 30 seconds. They call it the misfits. And it highlighted people who throughout history had been deemed as misfits, had been deemed as rebels. And I remember the last part of that advert saying that if somebody is crazy enough to think that they can change the world, then indeed they can. And that's really the submission. that you need to be a misfit in the positive sense, really. You don't have to go with the flow. You don't have to fit into your environment. You don't have to fit into the knowledge you find yourself in. It's that box. Sometimes people say, think outside the box. I don't think there should be a box at all to think out of. There was once I met this astronaut who had come to Ghana, and I asked him, if there was one thing you could say to me, what would it be? And he said, I've been to space. There's no limit.
You know something interesting? My son Jojo said he had to meet that astronaut.
Yeah.
And we did everything possible.
Oh.
And he met him, and guess what? He told him the same thing.
There's no limit. They say the
same thing.
They say the sky is the limit. He said there's no limit. Because he's gone beyond the sky and he's seen the heavenlies and he's seen the solar system. There's no limit.
There's no limit.
And that's all.
And those will be your closing thoughts. There's no box.
There's no box. There's no limit.
Jacob, what's your closing thought? But I want to affirm that you are crazy. But still tell us your closing thoughts.
Well, so you can only change the world if you are crazy. And that is important. As Sammy said, see, you don't have to fit in what is happening. You don't have to follow the trends. You need to have hope, because the day you lose hope, that's the day you die. You need to believe that you can take your life to the next level. And don't be scared. I think fear is something that we underrate. There are so many people. When I started my business, I entered an incubator, and there were almost 15 businesses in the incubator being supported to grow the business. And today, 90% of them, all of them were older, all of them had experiences. I was just a junior high school. I've ended up working for multinationals, working for across the world. I provide services for almost every industry that you can think of. And that wasn't because I was special, it's because I had hope and I worked towards it. So have the hope, believe in yourself, and Sammy has rightly summarized it. There's no limit to what you can achieve.
Believe in God.
There is no limit to what you can achieve if you trust God, you believe in yourself, and you work very hard. Next, if you work very hard on how technology can take your small idea and take it all the way to the top. My name is Albert Okran, and I have been learning today from two very special people, Sammy Bartels, Senior Manager of Regulatory Affairs at MTN Ghana, and Jacob Gyan, CEO of Adroit 360. Next week we'll find out what's the meaning of 360. and they've been telling us about the power of technology and innovation and wrapping it around the story of their lives in a very beautiful package. It's like pure water and coconut oil. If you don't understand, rewind to the beginning and you will understand. So we come your way again next week. I want to thank you on behalf of the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and our partners MTN Pulse, the Enterprise Group, UMB Bank, and Central University, and our sponsors or our media partners, the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Business. On Tuesday, turn to page 18 in the Graphic Business, or better still, you're talking about technology, Graphic Online or springboard.com.gh or MyJoy Online, and you'll get a full transcript of this very wonderful conversation to share with your friends. So till we come away again next week with a scalable edition of this conversation. My name is Albert Okran, saying God bless you, and God bless you.